In the annals of crime history, few cases are as infamous or mysterious as the story of Jack the Ripper, an unidentified serial killer who terrorized London's Whitechapel district in 1888. This case, which took place during the late Victorian era, continues to captivate the world not only because of the brutal nature of the murders, but also because it remains unsolved more than a century later. The mystery of Jack the Ripper reveals not only the horror of the crimes themselves, but also the social and political tensions of Victorian London, making it one of the most complex cases ever documented. The killings began in the impoverished area of Whitechapel, a district known for its overcrowded slums, rampant crime, and extreme poverty. Many residents were struggling to survive, and some women turned to prostitution to earn a living. Jack the Ripper preyed upon these vulnerable women, whom society often ignored or judged harshly. Over a period of a few months, 5 women, now known as the Canonical Five victims, were brutally murdered in ways that shocked even the most hardened members of the public. Each victim was found mutilated, with severe cuts to the throat and abdomen, leading investigators to suspect that the killer had some anatomical knowledge. The first murder attributed to the Ripper was that of Mary Ann Nichols, found dead on August 31, 1888. Her body showed signs of a vicious attack, with deep slashes across her throat and mutilation to her abdomen. Just 8 days later, on September 8th, another woman, Annie Chapman, was discovered in a similar state of mutilation. The escalating violence and clear pattern in the killings led to a public panic, as it became apparent that a dangerous individual was at large. Fear spread through Whitechapel, and rumors began circulating about the identity of the murderer. Some believed he was a doctor, while others suggested he might be a butcher due to the nature of the wounds. The third attack, known as the double event, occurred on the night of September 30, 1888, when Elizabeth Stride and Catherine Eddowes were murdered within an hour of each other. Elizabeth Stride's body bore a cut to the throat, but unlike the previous victims, she was not mutilated further. Investigators speculated that the killer may have been interrupted, forcing him to flee before completing his gruesome ritual. However, within the hour, Catherine Eddowes was found mutilated in the same horrifying manner as the previous victims. The audacity of killing 2 women in one night further fueled public hysteria, and Jack the Ripper's reputation grew as a cold and fearless killer who seemed impossible to catch. One of the most unsettling aspects of the case was the series of letters allegedly sent by the killer to the police and the media. The most famous of these was the "Dear Boss" letter, which was received by the Central News Agency on September 27, 1888. The letter was filled with taunts, including a chilling line about the next job, and it was signed Jack the Ripper. Although the authenticity of this letter is debated, it gave the killer a name and a sinister personality that captured public imagination. Another letter, known as the "From Hell" letter, was received by George Lusk, the head of a neighborhood watch group called the Whitechapel Vigilance Committee. Enclosed with the letter was a small box containing a piece of a human kidney, which the writer claimed to have taken from one of his victims. This macabre gesture horrified the public and added a new level of dread to the unfolding horror. By the time the 5th victim, Mary Jane Kelly, was found on November 9, 1888, the investigation was at its peak. Kelly's murder was the most brutal of all. Her body was discovered in her rented room, extensively mutilated and almost unrecognizable. The scene shocked even seasoned detectives, who describe it as the most horrifying sight they had ever encountered. Kelly's murder marked the end of the killing spree attributed to Jack the Ripper, though some believe there may have been additional victims before or after the Canonical Five. The inability to catch Jack the Ripper exposed significant flaws in the Victorian justice system. Police used the limited resources available to them, but they faced significant challenges, such as the lack of advanced forensic technology and the overwhelming number of suspects. The population's distrust of the police grew, especially as public opinion suggested that law enforcement was not doing enough to protect the working-class residents of Whitechapel. The Ripper case became a catalyst for social reform discussions in London, as many people questioned how poverty and desperation had created an environment where a killer could act with impunity. Theories about Jack the Ripper's identity have varied wildly over the years, with suspects ranging from local butchers and doctors to prominent figures like painters and even royalty. Some criminologists believe that the Ripper may have fled the country or died soon after the murders, while others speculate he continued killing but shifted his methods to evade detection. In the 20th and 21st centuries, modern investigative techniques, such as DNA analysis, have been applied to the surviving evidence, but the case remains officially unsolved. Each year, new theories emerge, and the mystery continues to draw researchers and true crime enthusiasts from around the world. Jack the Ripper's legacy goes beyond just the murders. It has influenced countless works of literature, film, and even academic studies on criminal profiling. The case highlights how society's fears and anxieties about violence, poverty, and morality can shape public perception of crime. Today, the Ripper murders are studied not only as historical crimes but also as cultural phenomena, with scholars analyzing the media's role in shaping the legend and the impact of societal conditions on crime. Jack the Ripper is not only remembered as one of history's most notorious killers, but also as a symbol of the darkest aspects of human nature and the terrifying unknown. In summary, the story of Jack the Ripper continues to endure because it is a story of horror, mystery, and the profound impact of unsolved crime on society. Despite decades of research and investigation, Jack the Ripper's identity and motives remain unknown, and his story remains one of the greatest mysteries in criminal history.